I want to explain an interesting tool called warp tools. It's very interesting for changing the deformation of your objects. Uh, I begin with a simple rectangle here. The first thing is that the warp tool all just affected the vector. Now for the pixel, you have to use the Affinity photo. We have a simple shape here. If you come here, warp groups, if you click, you can choose between mesh, quad, perspective, all of the arc, bends, fisheye, and twist. I explain them with the mesh, you can understand better. Or you can come to the layer and the warp group, you can use the tools here. I want to just explain what happens if you adjust apply these warps. First, select the object that you want to warp it, and then select the mesh. As you can see, it's create a mesh for us. And what happened? It's automatically go to the node tool to changing the deformation of this. It's very simple, as you can see. You cannot see it very well here, but I show you just a second in the object. What is this? You can with this handle change it. And what happened here? We have a tool here. You can directly here change the mesh to, for example, quad, to, for example, twist, or anything that you want, or not. Here to the mesh, or if you don't like it, you can reset it again. Join. For example, here it's a bending. As you can see, you can make it to the cusp. And it means it's break from here, and you can break the handles. That's it. Or you can use all of the snaps. For example, I will change the object from here like this, and you can mute mesh. It's back to the original image, and you can see your original image here. Or if you're satisfied with that, you can convert it to the curve. Boom. And what happened here? It's very important. It's automatically create a warp group. From here, I reset it again and delete this warp. Oh, because it's a child of that, it will be delete from there. Open it, click and drag, release it from the warp group, and just we have a warp group here and you can delete it. Again, select the object and create a mesh. And as you can see, it's create a group and it's under your rectangle. Interesting. Go to the mesh, and if you go to the move tool, you cannot see the mesh. Be careful. You have to come back to the node tool. For better understanding that, you can delete this rectangle, release it. You can delete this warp and come to this heart. Select that and select the warp mesh. And now you can see better that it's warping your heart. You can see this is a warp. You can change it. You can use these handles and done. Another interesting thing that I want to explain, if you click on all of these sides, you can add a mesh. Click is automatically add line and cells for you. Interesting. Going your mouse over these lines. If you want to move one cell, simply click at the inside of this section and then click and drag. Another important thing about the group, they are maintained. It means if you release the object that is in a group, or in another interesting, you can add a lot of children below that. For example, our rectangle, click and drag it. As you can see, we have a rectangle and heart under a group. Select the rectangle, go into the move tool, and as soon as it reached the warp, it's taking the shape. So this is a many important thing. You can add a lot of children above the group, or you can release it, and we have a warp, but it's not working. If you go to the move tool, you cannot see your warp, and you cannot move it. You have to go here. You can select all of them. That's it. Or you can, for example, add another If you want to move it, you have to move it with the object if you want. For example, I click and drag it, this rectangle under the warp, and then select the object and bring it inside the warp. Oh, I didn't do that. Yeah, this warp, and bring back to. Oh, as you can see, I suddenly moved the warp here because it does not affect it. Select it again, and now. Okay, be careful about that. Okay, this is the main basics of the warp that here. For example, you can add a warp to this high children here. As you can see, we have lots of group here, character, for example, here, field. Yeah. You can go to the, you can add warp to this group. Just select that, select the mesh, and done. Then you can click and warp it as you want, like this. Interesting. And then if you don't want, you can release your group and click and drag outside of the warp group. Or you can also warp all of the text, for example. Select it, mesh. You can add a point anywhere that you want and then warp it. Nice. Don't forget that you can do. And don't forget, you cannot warp the pixel image. That's it. Another thing, for example, I want to add a warp here. First, I select the simplest shape and warp on this lamp. Select it, add a simple mesh to that. And or select another warp here. We can change it here. For example, I need very simple. These are preset of the mesh. For example, arc vertical. Yeah, you can see it. You can change the value of that. It's an arc vertical. Nice. These warps are the handle. Actually, mesh is freehand, but there are slider that you can warp it in any direction that you want. To better see that, you can select this mesh. This is an under warp. For example, here you can change it to arc vertical. With this handle, you can rotate it in any direction that you want, or you can change it to the arc horizontal. Don't forget that you can create interesting thing with that, these warps, or you can use a bend. It's bending, for example, in this direction. Nice. It's bending the objects. You can use, if you want, for example, this or this, you can use, for example, bend vertical. Yeah, you can create an interesting shape with this, or bend horizontal. Yeah, or for example, from here, it's under a work group or bend horizontal. Test all of these warps that we can use. Select that and select it and make for example, a fish eye to that. It's very interesting. It's create a mesh with a value. You can make it a fish eye effect like this. Nice. Or you can simply from changing here, twist it to value. You can twist and create such interesting effects. Nice. And then you can make it none. So you learn you can release all object from the warp and insert another object to that. Okay, that's very interesting, and you can create a very interesting work with that. And another interesting thing is the perspective. For example, from here, I make it to the none, and with this group selected, bring the all object here. If you want to see that warp group, select it, go into node tool to see the tools, and make it the perspective. I want to add a perspective here. It's very simple. As you can see, with this click and drag, you can move it. Select all of these nodes, click it here, select all of these nodes, click and drag it here, and very simple with the perspective, deselect, select again, and simply you can create perspective here. Nice. This is a simple perspective, and you can add a shadow. Another thing that we have is make it none. We have another tool like quad. It's a quad for it's act like a perspective, but in a different way. Okay. With this, you cannot create a perspective. You can just change the quad deformation of your objects like this. As you can see, it does not create a perspective for you. Just you can, with these quads, these 4 nodes, you can change the deformation of your text or object. It's very different to perspective. Nice. So you can test all of these, are very easy. Okay, for example, from here, I have a bend horizontal. I can directly, if you just add one node to that, simply, it's convert to the mesh. Create that, and I create a simple node. Oops. Simple deformation here, for example, if you want a simple deformation. And this is my warp. And then I want to make it deleted or just delete that. And just we have a warp group that is empty. For creating empty, just select a rectangle and warp it and then use it. I want to adjust it to this curve of here and then bring it to the object. It's very simple. I move my tutorial cells here or bring it there, and it has a warp. I release it from the warp and bring it to the another warp that I created here. Select tutorial cells, and if you move it, as you can see, you have your warp working here. So it's very simple. You can transfer objects from one warp to the another warp that you want. I hope you enjoy. This is very powerful and interesting tools.